Gear up as Cash Miller and a team of accomplished guests steer you on an enlightening voyage filled with valuable tips, fresh insights, and effective strategies. Welcome to Marketing Masters, the Agency Power Show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cash Miller. I'm the host of Marketing Masters, CEO of Titan Digital. And today we're going to be talking about DIY marketing, do it yourself. And I've got with me Sheri Walsh, Hive-Minded Marketing. Sheri, it's great to have you on. We're going to be talking about, how you can do some of these things, yourself as a business owner. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Sheri, and your agency.
Yes, thanks so much, Cash. Thanks for having me on the show. Really excited to be here. And at Hive-Minded Marketing, we really got our start because we have a heart for helping small and local businesses. And so, DIY marketing, or kind of like doing it yourself where you can to save on your budget, is something we hear a lot of business owners talk about. And so, Hive-Minded, we are completely full service. We can do absolutely everything for you. Or if you want, we can teach you how to do it yourself. And it's kind of exciting to be able to be in both worlds.
Yeah. So do-it-yourself marketing, the systems and stuff, the things that are out there nowadays, it is really possible. And of course, you'd wonder because, we both own agencies and stuff. So why would we be telling you how to do it yourself? But there are a number of things, depending on your budget and everything, that you're going to want to do yourself. So, what's that landscape look like for marketers now? Or for people that want to handle their own marketing, what are some of the things that they can kind of cover on their own if they choose to do so?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the beautiful thing about marketing, if at its core, marketing is all about influencing action. And there are hundreds, thousands of ways of influencing action. And, the most common ones people already know about, like social media, a great website, email marketing, all of those things have the ability for you to do it yourself, or if you want, you can hire an agency who can kind of take it above and beyond. But most business owners already have started, with their social media, at least, liking and commenting and posting. And so because a lot of business owners already have a foundation in some of the basic marketing stuff, the basic, social media and emailing, we really believe that a lot of that can be done with the business owner's budget in mind at home. That way they can leave the more advanced, technical website building or advanced advertisement and pay-per-click to professionals who have just a little bit more experience. Yeah.
One of the things that I always or often recommend to business owners, especially it comes in social media, because where you'd want an agency is to run the ads, that you might be doing on different platforms and stuff. But, it's hard, as agencies, we can replicate what you're doing from a posting standpoint because we can put together strategies, of certain things, but there's certain things that we're not going to be able to do. For example, if you are, you're a local business and you're very involved in the community, I'm not going to be able to take your photos. I'm not going to be able to pull out the phone and snap shots and stuff at events you might be at and things like that. And those are things you're going to want to do. And you also want to do them in the moment, because I'm going to be, scheduling stuff. Whereas you might have stuff that would get a better response if you can do it right then. You post it, you get it, let's say, in the moment, hey, are you at this event, or did you know about this? It could be like, hey, we're, at the farmer's market or something, we're at the local chamber event, things like that can get traction quickly, but they're in the moment. So they're, but they bring, more awareness to you as a company, the events going on, things like that. So, there's certain instances where, it is better that you actually do it yourself, and we'll encourage it because it's going to be more, more authentic versus some of the things that we can end up doing, whereas ours are going to be more kind of campaign oriented.
Right. And, you mentioned having a strategy. And I think that's so once as a business owner, once you kind of know your strategy and your primary messaging, it is so important to have that authenticity. So really show that you're actually a real person doing real things. And especially as AI emerges, I'm already getting, probably 10 or 20 emails a month at least just from AI, so people want to know that you're real and you're there and you're breathing and especially like younger generations have that expectation. So yeah, it's just doing your own stories, taking your own pictures, and knowing why you're doing it is really, really important.
Yeah. Like I say, that's where, like I say, social media, that's going to be really important because of the authenticity that you're shooting for and such, and so having your own stories, because like I say, when you're talking, branding, and really you're trying to build a brand voice of the way you talk to people and stuff and the stories you tell. And often, like I say, it's you because you're the owner. No one understands the business better than you. In which case I say, while we can help craft the strategies that you might, be able to use, I say it's hard to replicate the voice. So there are advantages. And at times there are certain aspects of your marketing, because we think of, do it yourself. Not all marketing has to be do it yourself. It can be a combination. Certain things you do yourself, and certain things your partner, an agency or whoever you might be working with, is doing it for you.
Absolutely. And I think knowing how to separate your budget and resources is really important, but also something that most business owners probably don't really have a full grasp on. And so what we see a lot is small business owners who are spreading themselves really thin. They have someone helping with their social media. They have someone helping with their emails, someone helping with their website. They might hire an agency to make website updates or run a PPC ad, but they're spreading themselves really thin. And so one of the things we like to do is we're really focused on the strategy piece, is help business owners come up with a 1, 2, and 5 year plan of which marketing channels are we going to focus on this year, and what are we going to add, and when do we know we can add them. That way, instead of doing a lot of things just okay, you can do 1 or 2 things really, really great. And I think that's way more powerful than just kind of checking a box that you're present everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's totally, spot on, because, a lot of people, they end up just checking the box. Did we do some posts? They're able, they say, if you're just worried about posts, we could do it for you. If you want, something with, a certain level of authenticity of who you are, there's, like I say, there's certain things you can't, we're not going to be able to replicate. You could give it to us and we can polish it up, so images or video or things like that, and we can make it, potentially look better, but it's also going to slow it down too, versus, like I say, being more in the moment, and posting it, earlier and stuff. Let's talk technology though, that has made doing certain things, so much easier. What are some of the technologies that you see that business owners can utilize, from potentially, like, we know AI for writing to, you've got stuff for graphic design that, can be used on a certain level by non-graphic designers. You've got certain things in the website space that you can use, platform wise and stuff. So what are you seeing?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we know has kind of increased the availability of DIY marketing is simply accessibility. There was a time when, to do good marketing, you've always needed the knowledge, of course, but you really needed tools and data. You needed experience, tools, and data to do good marketing. And right now we're seeing so many new tools and platforms and software for you to get data. It's already there. And then with the experience, all of us who have been focused on SEO for the last several years, who've been, putting content on the web constantly, that means that you DIY marketers have a lot of experience they can glean lessons from. But it's really been this push of, I think, honestly, AI, which is, made so many different things more scalable, that has made DIY marketing more accessible. So, you mentioned AI, where of course, ChatGPT always comes to mind. It's not a search engine, though that's how it's used, but it's great if you want help with your content creation, ideation, project management. And then you take that and you throw it in something like Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid to shore up your writing. And those, are all free services. So they're giving a lot away for free now that you used to have to pay. And then with graphic design, Canva Pro, it's very inexpensive. And it makes beautiful graphics and mockups very accessible. And then there's, designs.ai, which it also helps create beautiful mockups. And even things like website design, there's businesses, what is it? Usard, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm never quite sure. Usard.io and Fronty. Both of those can help you create wireframes and mockups of your websites. And then we've had data collection for a long time. Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Business Profile. We've had access to free data for a very long time. But now you have additional things like SEMrush, Ahrefs, these things that allow you to get amazing SEO data and insights. And of course, Buffer for social media. You can put all your content in there and schedule it out when you're not doing the in the moment stuff. So these are a handful of software. Most of the software I just listed, is free or under $200 a month. I think the most expensive is SEMrush Pro if you don't want to do the free version. And that's the most expensive one at just a little under $200 a month.
Yeah. And of course, everything, when it comes to different software it's like, how in depth do you want to, be able to do it? So in the case of SEO, it can be a bit more complicated using a pro. We use, SEMrush and stuff, and it's, there's a learning curve to such things. And so that might be a service that you say, well, I want to have somebody else that's, professional, do that because of the nature of it. But, you mentioned Canva. And so I can give an example there. Like we have, a number of graphic designers on staff and stuff, and they design a lot of websites, and we'll do print pieces and logos. But we end up writing a lot of blog posts for people and social media posts and stuff. And I don't want my graphic designers who are trained designers to do those kinds of things, because for them, it's, and for me as an owner, it's more valuable to have them designing a website than a blog post image. Okay. So,
absolutely.
So our writers have always been trained, and they're not graphic designers, but they've always been trained to use Canva to be able to come up with their own imagery and stuff that goes with the post, because then we can get it done faster. Again, they're not graphic designers, they're writers. So things like Canva are designed for the amateur to be able to use well, not look horrible. I say it's not back in the day. It's not Microsoft Paint. You can make something look really good, and yet you're not a trained designer, so you can come up with a lot of your things. You have to take the time to learn these softwares, but most of them are fairly straightforward, and they'll have tutorials and stuff to teach you how to, I know how to use Canva too, so, it's like, no matter what, there's going to be something. It's a matter of how much time do you want to invest in it. Most don't require a lot. And then you may, as a business, hit a point where you need an agency or something, somebody else, even somebody on staff doing it full time for you. But you're able to, especially for younger, smaller businesses and such, there's a ton of stuff you can do on your own. The tools exist. Most are very inexpensive.
Absolutely. And I'd like to your point about your copywriters also being trained in Canva. I think that's a perfect example, or a social media manager trained in Canva. We often will get content from our clients where they'll send us their pictures, and the pictures themselves are nice, but we don't always just want to post a picture. And so we'll zhuzh it up in Canva. And that's something our social media person can do, or even, a virtual assistant can do. So they don't have to have the, InDesign experience to still get something beautiful. But if we're creating large images for a website or a billboard, we're still going to have our graphic designers, take on those larger pieces. And now there's that division of labor and division of cost, where the more expensive, the things that cost us more as an agency to produce can be associated with the things that are higher ticket items. And we can keep the cost of things like social media lower, so that small businesses with limited budgets do have access to some of those, expert marketing services.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's a ton of things that, people can be doing. Let's talk vetting some of these systems, though, because, we know of, a plethora of different systems that we can use, for any number of things. But if you're a business owner and you're not familiar with these things, what should they be looking for to see if it's the right system for them to use, as they're kind of figuring out which tools, are going to help them?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Well, here at Hive Minded, we're big proponents that business owners should look at marketing as an essential business practice. We say this over and over again. Marketing is often treated like it's something that is just extra, but it's hand in hand with your sales and with your brand identity. So it's essential. And that means that business owners and leaders should have a handle on marketing strategy. And I think that if more business owners and leaders really understood the why, not just the how, like how do I do Canva? How do I do SEMrush? How do I do this campaign? But why? Like, why am I doing it? Why is it right for my business? I think that business owners and leaders can develop within themselves the logic and the emotional intelligence and the reasoning to develop more intuition. And so that if you trust yourself, you can kind of learn who to trust on, and you can figure out what resources you can trust to help you out. So one, I think creating a foundation of knowledge is the biggest thing that helps. The second is my style. I'm a get in there and do it. And if it doesn't work, pivot kind of person. So I think really, trying it out, getting your hands in it, seeing do you even have the energy and the patience to learn something? Is it going to be something that you can see yourself doing, or are you going to wish you'd hired someone else to do it? So I don't love doing my own social media. I can do it, but there's a reason we have someone else too, because it drains me of energy. So when I was trying and learning new social media programs and softwares, after playing with it for a little bit, I went to my partner, Bethany. I was like, I really don't like doing this. Can we trade jobs? And we can do that. I took over learning how to master Chat GPT, and she understands all the ins and outs of social media. So really get in there, try it, test it, and play with it before you commit to any one platform or software.
Yeah, you definitely, because a lot of softwares have free demos and stuff. They have limited periods of, trial time, or, and like I say, some are free and some are like a lot of softwares offer free versions, and then it's a matter of upgrading. So, by trying it out, you'll see if it's got all the features you need for you, versus, what they might be on a higher level, so that can really, vary depending on which software you're looking at. So signing up, taking the time to demo it and such, and see, and the thing is with a lot of softwares too now, there are so many, even if the company that designed the software hasn't put out a ton of videos and such on how to do something, YouTube, we, look up how to do everything nowadays. Okay. And there are a ton of the softwares that are actually on there that you can see how they're used. And it might be somebody that's not, related to that company that decided to do a demo anyway, because they're racking up views and stuff of how to use it.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of educational stuff that will help you vet whether that software is for you. It can do what you want it to do, because there are a lot of options, software, you think of, it's all SaaS stuff. And if you're postings, for example, for social media and such, yes, you can go into your platforms, do it directly, but there's software that'll allow you to take care of your posts for, you might manage 5 platforms or something, and you want to put stuff out there, and you can have a single platform to get it ready and be able to do that. But there's a lot of those kinds of softwares out there, and they've all got pros and cons. So you want to see.
Yeah. And I think absolutely. And I think deciding whether what's right for your business is a lot of free software where you need to kind of maybe master several, 5, 10 different platforms, or if you want to pay for the more robust platforms. So, just going back to Canva Pro. Canva Pro, if you pay for the pro version versus the free version, you do get a lot more tools. And yes, you're paying a little bit more, but maybe you can limit the additional tools that you need to master and learn. And SEMrush is the same way. If you take the time to learn it, you can use one tool to do several different things. And I think that's really going to come down to the individual business owner, how much time, energy, effort you have to put into it, how much patience you have to put into it versus how much money do you have to put into it. And a lot of times when we find DIY marketers who are just stressed beyond their limit, it's, they wanted to save that extra $10 a month. And that's, so they didn't get the upgrades or the advanced version. And, we kind of come in there just like, give them permission. It's okay. Pay the $10 a month and save yourselves 10 hours a month.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make. Remember, time or money, they both, they both have a cost.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind, that often upgrading to a low end paid version, which could be $10 or $20 a month, consider how much time it might save you, because the additional tools that would be unlocked on that platform that would, make things a lot faster for you. So that's also a real big consideration when you're deciding which tools to choose. And the other thing that's out there too is, when you're considering what tools, if you're comparing them, there are tons of, sites like one of them is called GA Crowd or whatever, that are comparison sites for software, pros and cons of each one, but it's, it's comparing them. It's putting them side by side and say, hey, here's the best, 5 options to do this. And then you can see which ones. So it helps you kind of, narrow down real quickly without necessarily demoing every single piece of software, what might be useful.
Absolutely. And that's actually how we came up. There's a platform called Coolers. It's like colors with an extra O for, to make it cool. And there's a completely free version of it. But one of the upgrades allows you to see some accessibility features and actually see what your colors look like to people that have different types of vision. So, if you're colorblind, here's what your logo is going to look like. And this is something that when we are developing websites, we frequently check to make sure that the font and color accessibility is going to meet accessibility standards, because that way it's more SEO optimized. And for the additional, and I do believe it's $10 a month, we are able to throw our colors in here and actually see which color font combinations will match accessibility standards. And then that allows us to hand that to our developers and our designers and say, this type of font on this color has to be this size in order to maintain accessibility. Something that we were doing and testing ourselves for a very long time. And it was taking us so much time and energy. But finally, one day, one of us Googled, like, how can I do this better and cheaper and faster? And a tool we were already using had that feature for like a small amount. Doing your research, I think, is so important.
Yeah. And to be clear, there's like tools that can help with all sorts of things. I say, with email marketing, we do a lot of that for clients and such. And we use a tool called Email on Acid that it's specifically to check content and subject lines and see what would be caught in spam boxes, and anybody can use that tool, and you're putting in different subject lines, and it's, essentially scoring, what you've got and telling you what kind of changes you need to make, because, there are certain words that are going to be, caught first in spam filters when you go to send that email. So we're testing it beforehand, but that's a tool that anybody can use, to make their email marketing better. So let's say the idea is regardless of what you're doing, because your example is great too. There's some individual things like that you might not think of, that do exist that help, let's say, as marketers, yes, we're trained to do marketing, but we weren't trained to use these tools. We had to learn them too.
Oh yeah. You make a fantastic point there. And I think that's something like a marketer understands marketing and strategy and the why behind it, but almost everything else, all the other hands-on experience, we got hands-on on the job. There's very little from my marketing classes that I took as far as just implementation goes. The rest of it was definitely things I learned on the job. And, your point about Email on Acid and how this is a simple tool that you can use to check email. This is a great example of a obstacle that a lot of people are going to run into. And, they might throw their hands in the air and just give up and say, I can't do this. I can't do email marketing. Everything's going into spam. But it takes knowledge and experience. You have to make the mistakes or come to the obstacles and overcome them in order to kind of get that experience. And that's one of the biggest benefits of an agency that you get that a lot of DIY marketers maybe don't have access to. So kind of a rule of thumb with DIY marketing is you really have to give yourself grace, because you're going to be going through the same roadblocks and hurdles that all of us went through. You're just building your experience, and it can be frustrating, but at the end of the day, it's worth it when you have a clear message that reaches your target audience and, you see those conversions going up.
Yeah. And to be clear too, there's also it seems like every day there's new tools coming out. And there's also improvements to existing tools that you might already be using. So you want to be looking into those types of things, to see where, like I say, what is new, so one of the things, like I say, that we're always doing is reevaluating what we're using to see if there's something better, a different way, to do things and such. And so that's the thing that you want to consider is there a better way to do stuff? Things change.
Absolutely. And a lot of DIY marketing business leaders and business owners can very much get in I finally mastered this. I'm comfortable with it. We're sticking with it forever. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is this is an industry that is constantly pivoting and constantly shifting. Sometimes it feels like we're all standing on quicksand. And that's why we really push the idea of having a foundation in marketing strategy, because if you know the why, you know how to pivot. But if you're only focused on learning how to do actions, like how do I post? How do I do a paid campaign? How do I build a website in WordPress? If you're just focusing on how you do the actions when the market or the industry shifts, there's a much larger learning curve to kind of get yourself back on track. And I think that's where we get a lot of people who come to us and they're like, I'm done. I don't want to do this myself, but I can't afford an agency. So I'm just not going to do any type of marketing. And we kind of step in and we're like, okay, whoa, let's back it up. Let's get you, kind of get you stable first. And then we can talk about what we should do and what you can still do if you want to take some of that cost on yourself. So it's not, all going to an agency.
Yeah. So that actually leads into, a good question. So pitfalls, if you do it yourself, what are some of the things that you're going to run into, to just be aware of, because I say they can reach a point of, oh my, I can't do this anymore. So what are some of the things that might, the business owner might run into?
Well, at the expense of sounding like a broken record, I'm going to just state again, I think it's really focusing on the why instead of the how. I think that this is the number one trick that it keeps people from feeling too frustrated and helps people learn how to master marketing faster with, less bruises. And so if you understand why you're doing what you're doing, if you understand at the root of marketing, it's all about influencing action. And then whose action are you influencing and what do those people need to influence action? If you can kind of stay focused on those things, then you're going to avoid a lot of the most common pitfalls right off the bat. The other thing that I think that we see a lot of is, I mentioned it, is spreading way too thin. If you're wanting to do it yourself, focus on one or two things to master and get comfortable with. We only have so much neuroplasticity. And as we get older and, already we have these bigger lives that we're stretched thin, it is harder to learn new things. And for someone who's taking on the role of becoming a business leader / DIY marketer, you've still got a whole business to run. And so you might not have all the mental energy you need to become a master in all things marketing. So pick one or two things that are not going to drain you of all your energy, really get a handle on those before moving on to the next thing. It's definitely not a sprint. We're in this for the long haul. So you've got to conserve your energy. I think those are the biggest pieces of advice we give. And don't use ChatGPT as a search engine. It's not meant for accuracy. That's another one.
Yeah. Well, I'd also, because this kind of goes into, get good at something and stuff is plan, because, marketing does take time. So you want to make sure that what you're going to do is planned out, so that you have time committed, to it, because often, if you're doing it yourself, it can be a very scattershot approach. I do a little of this,
yes.
I do a little of this, and you don't get any traction with it because you do spread yourself too thin, and you don't have any focus on any particular thing to give it enough time too, because you can only do so many things, in it. You only have so much time. So make sure that you don't spread thin. You focus in a few areas. You plan on the areas that you're going to focus, and what does that look like? So I'm going to do these social media platforms. I'm going to make sure I post this many times. I'm going to, if I'm boosting posts or something like that, or I'm writing a certain number of blog posts, but you have a plan to what you're trying to develop over time, and how much it's going to take and stuff. And then that way you also know when it grows beyond you, because you can't, you want to accelerate it. You want to, grow it, but you can't do it all yourself. And you're going to either need somebody within the business to help you, or you're going to need outside help, but it'll be more.
Yeah. And just like what you're saying is, make a plan. Also, have KPIs, know what is a performance indicator that leads to success. This is going to take a little bit of research. It's going to take, you're going to have to dig a little bit, but set up benchmarks along the way that are not your exact end goal. But, like, for example, if you are wanting to use your social media to convert traffic to your website, and start with the number of people on your social media and then the number of engagements. And then you can start to, once you get a audience built, then you can start looking at your conversion metrics, on your website. Mm-hmm. So setting up key performance indicators, setting up benchmarks that allow you to kind of track your small wins, because marketing is all about hundreds of small wins before you get to, your big end goal. And we naturally know to look for those, but I think a lot of small business owners are very goal oriented. I need more people to be signing up with my services. I've done marketing for 6 months. I haven't seen an increase. So they don't feel like they're getting anywhere, when really they've grown to social media and their brand awareness is better. More people are talking about them, and they just are not seeing it because they're not really looking at those smaller steps.
Yeah. No, that's great too. So to kind of sum everything up, like I say, have a plan, find the tools that you need to be able to execute that plan and stuff, because there's plenty of things that you can, do on that end, and then know your KPIs and know, what is it that, how do you define success? What does that look like for you and such? And also know what your time horizon is, to be able to put it together. So if you're going to do it yourself, there's a lot of things, there's some considerations to take into account, but there's also, there's going to be some advantages. And at some point, I say you're going to want to make a transition to where either you're partnering with someone so that they can take part of the, the work off your plate. That could be individual stuff, and you just want somebody internally, or you want some outside help. And, but it doesn't mean turning everything over. You can still be partly a do-it-yourself marketer. Sheri, this has been great. How would people get a hold of you and your agency and stuff? Where do they find you?
So you can find us online at hivemindedmarketing.com. And I know whenever I say this out loud, people often hear it as high-minded. So there is a V, like beehive, Hive Minded Marketing. And our phone number is 417-221-4300.
Cool. This has been another great episode. Thank you, Sheri, for joining us today. Do it yourself. Like I say, that's as agencies, we wouldn't necessarily, you wouldn't think we would say, hey, this is a route you can go, but it certainly is. It just depends on what your situation is as a business owner. So I'm Cash Miller, host of Marketing Masters. I'm the CEO of Titan Digital. Thank you for tuning in to another great episode.